Alright, I'm here with Mr. Crosby here to discuss what makes a good song. So, I just have a couple of questions for you. It's going to be very brief. We'll start off with something a little bit more basic. Do you have a list of songs that are really important to you or stuff that's stuck out over the years? It could be musical or operatic, classical, or instrumental, whatever.
Let me shut the door. I think that, most of the melodies that are in my head are without words, probably instrumental. I like The Planets by Holst. I like Holst's, melodies and his works, and really some of the simpler ones also, like Dvorak's New World Symphony. I think that melody is I think it's from the last movement. It's just very endearing, and it maybe goes on a little long. Dvorak tends to do that, but this is a great melody. Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Jupiter from The Planets, as far as just expansive melodies, legato melodies, that's a great melody. It's been set, composers have put words to that, which is a little hokey, but if you don't know that, I'd listen to Jupiter. I think it's Jupiter.
Yeah, I'm familiar with The Planets. It's a great string orchestral section.
Mars is more of the rhythmic drive than the... Yeah. When I was in high school, I don't know. Of course, I've always listened to a lot of piano music, and at the end of Beethoven's Ninth, that melody seems so simple, and it kind of is, but then having seen Beethoven's Ninth, and the energy just that just comes out of the orchestra, and all the variations that Beethoven uses with that melody, with displacing the rhythm, and that's just an incredible way to end a symphony. You can see the resounding influences that had. So if listening to that is just different than experiencing it live. Mm-hmm. And I think the melody is kind of the same way, because it kind of depends on the texture and color around the melody a lot of times, that makes the melody come alive. And for Jupiter, it's about the orchestration too, that really, the melody is good on its own, but it's the texture with the melody that really, I don't know, gives it its heart pull, its heart, in a way. Catchy melodies are good, for sure. Now, if you're looking at something that's going to sell and people are going to remember, then yeah, it needs to be catchy. But I don't know that my favorite melodies, I guess those melodies are pretty catchy that I gave you. But I love melodies that aren't necessarily singable, that you wouldn't just,
So you've touched on two subjects concerning a good melody.
Yeah.
Simplicity is one of them. It's been a recurring topic, and what you've just discussed, not necessarily catchy. Is catchy and good, are they mutually exclusive? Can they be one and the same, or what's your opinion?
They can, but not always. Yeah.
Can you think of
Simply
a great
bad
melody?
is still simply bad. And simply good is, I don't know. There are, I think Bernstein also has great melodies in his works. And they're not always simple. They're a little bit more complex. not maybe as singable initially, but the complexity is kind of disguised. You know, it's still very attainable and very accessible, even when it's in maybe a changing meter or, you know, some intervals that aren't normal to melodies. So yeah, I like his stuff as well. So I don't, you know, catchy is good, but if you're gonna sell, you know, there are a lot of things that sell that for whatever reason people will remember, but it's not necessarily, you know, they can be one and the same, but you know, if you get sick of it, if it's catchy and you're just sick of it that it's in your head, then it's probably not a good thing, you know. and that happens, you know. I wish I didn't recall this melody, you know, and sometimes that's good monetarily for people that, you
like
know,
all the single ladies you hear 1,000 times on the radio.
There are a lot of things that are selling that are basically one or two notes, you know, so I would discount those as being good. But you know, my pop listening, you know, I don't just go out and listen a lot, so mainly what I hear is just from existing in this world and nothing. You know, the melody "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" is, you know, been said to be such a great melody, and you know, I agree with that as well. I kind of heard that before I, you know, bought into it. You know, "What a Wonderful World," Louis Armstrong. I think just its endearing quality, and with the chord progressions, they're kind of simple, but well crafted with how the line descends and you go to a little minor and then, but you know, generally it's a pleasing and, you know, good endorphin kind of. So I guess I enjoy melodies that have range to them, but not for the sake of, you know, technicality. A range that has direction.
Okay.
Not necessarily comes out of like a theoretical perspective. It's just like, this is kind of natural, it has direction, but it's not stuck. Now I say that, but I also really like Stravinsky, which a lot of times is very... actually, the Firebird
yes,
is a great melody. 7/4, but it's kind of, he's kind of trapped, you know. It's his music and his rhythms, along with his melodies, you know, are kind of, I mean, I love listening to it, and I can't really, although after a while I'm like, okay, that's enough Stravinsky, but there's just such a sense of urgency, and he can, even his melodies are a little bit trapped within this kind of sense of urgency, and he gets that from his rhythmic drive too, and just the repetitive patterns. But it's pretty brilliant stuff, I think. I think Stravinsky, just the way he layers, and there is, again, complexity to it, but there's also a simplicity combined with that complex texture a lot of times. That so anybody that hasn't listened to the end of the Firebird, I mean, that's just a great drive, but really the melody is not that complicated. You know, but I think where it has come from makes it like a great release from the rest of kind of the suite. And other Stravinsky, his other suites. Petrushka, which I like, but I can't think of right now. The Rite of Spring is, you know, there's nothing... I mean, the beginning of it is great. That's a really cool setup. And it's a great work, but, you know, I couldn't really and Prelude to the Afternoon of the Fawn. It kind of starts the same way. But the rest of it, I'm not going to sing part of it. It doesn't. It's more about its complexity and being trapped. And I think I'm getting off on a tangent. Stravinsky's music, I think he kind of sought a lot of things, or explored a lot of different avenues that were going on at the same time. And Schoenberg kind of did as well. But I wouldn't say Schoenberg's melodies are memorable or... I mean, some of them are so chromatic and they're not bad, but that I think that's why I also like Brahms and there's a complexity to some of those melodies that you wouldn't necessarily sing, but.
So do you think there's like a tie between all of these, there, like you would mention that there's a combination of simplicity and complexity all at the same time as well. Like there's a wide variety of factors. Do you think we could boil it down to a single do you think that they just kind of out of the blue kind of did this, or maybe it's structured? Is that what makes a good melody? If it's
I think sometimes melodies just happen, and I think it comes from exposure to music, good music that you love, and it can come from structure, but creating a melody from structure is kind of difficult if you're just going to approach it from that standpoint. The melody, I agree, the melody needs to peak. It's not great if it always comes at the same point, but there's some great melodies that do that too. They don't necessarily rise above that. Kind of the peak is kind of a very romantic notion of the melody, but that's a good thing. Follow a step by skip in the opposite direction, or whatever. Those are good principles to abide by, which would help improve your melodies. And I guess a lot of the melodies I love do that. But I don't, when I write melodies or melodies I'm drawn to, I don't think of that. I don't analyze them like that, I guess. And they don't always have to be simple and complex. Simple melody that's good is still a good melody. I think the most important thing is that it has a direction. Even when it's just that the line is going somewhere and you can sense that. That it has a pull.
Would you say that it was written with purpose?
Yeah. I think that it's just a little bit hard to, it's probably the hardest thing about composing. One of the biggest challenges. Because it can't be forced in a way. When you're writing, it's easy just to kind of make the melody a part of what you're doing. I think that I hear and like to approach things from the melodic standpoint, with the harmony being heard underneath and not. So I think that's the whole thing about maybe melody and texture for me, that I think I probably think mostly of the melody first, but it's always with a harmonic structure. I don't think I just, sometimes I just sing a melody or whatever, but I think there's that thinking harmonically underneath of what's kind of the basis of it. So I don't know, that's kind of vague,
Yeah.
but...
It's almost like we're talking about a living, breathing creature that you just... Like, it's like, oh, what's the melody? Well, you can't do this with it, and it's this, but at the same time, it's also this. It's like you're talking about a person, and it's like, no, you can't fence her in, or else what? So...
I think, there are great things about having structure, and you can get a good melody from exercising. And that has happened. I think, and so maybe composers did, they do write a lot of stuff, and some stuff is better than others, just from the exercise of doing it. But I think almost more than that, it's the exposure and love to other people's music that will shape the melody that comes out of you. More than just, well, I'm going to keep exercising writing this melody. It is the collective wealth of your experience with music and what you love and what you have listened to and really dug into. That's gonna inform what comes out of your creative process a lot more than just the exercise of these are the part writing rules and this is, if you have that and you've never really loved certain kinds of music and allowed yourself to be exposed to things that you didn't like initially, that's a big thing. Like, I hate that composer, I don't want to listen to him. Well, I used to not like Brahms, and he's one of my faves now. It's like, why don't I enjoy this? And it's mostly because I didn't understand it. So, I think it's, that to me is the most important side to writing and to coming up with things is, and that can be, any genre. You're not going to come up with a good jazz tune, I don't think, or if you've never listened to jazz and never fallen in love with certain jazz and never, it's just not going to happen. It can be you can learn from text and do an exercise and you'll get better at it, but it's also going to be probably pretty evident that it came out of the exercise rather than the experience.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I talked a lot. Sorry.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good stuff, man.